All right, welcome everyone. I'd like to call the East Dundee Village Board meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock. Roll call.
Trustee Saviano.
Here.
Trustee Kunze. Present. Trustee Mahoney.
Here.
Trustee Oakland is absent. Trustee Guma.
Here.
Trustee Sauter. Here. And President Pearson.
Here. To the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Looks like we have an award tonight, Chief.
Yes. Sergeant Hanson, you want to come up? So just wanted to take a moment to recognize Sergeant Kyle Magnuson for a life-saving award that he earned recently. Here's the details. On October 11th, 2025, Sergeant Magnuson was dispatched to the 600 block of Ravine Road for a subject who called 911, telling dispatch he was committing suicide. The person had consumed chemicals and cut open his wrist. Sergeant Magnuson arrived near a wooded area and located a path into the woods. Approximately 50 feet into the woods, he located a person who was lying face down with a large open wound to his wrist. Sergeant Magnuson observed a large pool of blood on the ground. He then applied a tourniquet to the person's arm to stop the bleeding. Paramedics arrived on scene and took over patient care. I can say after watching the video, had Sergeant Magnuson not acted when he did, the individual certainly would have perished. Sergeant Kyle Magnuson demonstrated tremendous composure by speaking to the patient calmly while carefully applying the tourniquet to stop the bleeding. Sergeant Magnuson's actions displayed the qualities and characteristics of what the citizens expect of an East Dundee police officer. Thanks, Kyle.
What the public doesn't know is that the fire department may not be there at that time. And if they are, they're staged away because the police have got to secure the scene because they don't want to have anything happen with the fire department too. And it only takes seconds to bleed out when you hit an artery. So it really is important that they had their equipment and he had his equipment and actually was there quick enough. So that's great. Okay, do we have anybody for public comment? Congratulations.
None.
None? All right, then we will go to our public hearing.
Lights being fast, so please.
Give me a minute. All right, pursuant to Chapter 65 of the Illinois compiled statutes, I hereby call to order the public hearing on fiscal year 2026 proposed village budget. Pursuant to the statute, notice of this public hearing was published October 3rd, 2025 in the Daily Herald. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Saviano.
Yes.
We need a motion.
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Trustee Kunze. Yes. Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Trustee Guma.
Yes.
And Trustee Sauter.
Yes. Okay, I declare the public hearing on the fiscal year 2026 budget open. I will now turn the public hearing over to the Finance Director, Brandis Martin, for opening comments on the proposed budget.
We will do additional presentation later in the meeting if there's time to allow, but I have nothing to say at this time.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I'm sorry, if anyone from the public would like to speak now is the time.
Yeah, if anybody from the public would like to speak now, time? No? Okay. I will now entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Trustee Saviano.
Yes.
Trustee Kunze. Yes. Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Trustee Guma.
Yes.
Trustee Sauter.
Yes. Okay. Collector years. individuals may also submit written comments to the attention of the Finance and Administrative Services Director, Brandis West. The village board will consider taking action on an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2026 annual budget and related items at the November 17th, 2025 board meeting. Okay. Let's move to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the regular village board meeting minutes dated October 20th, 2025. Item B, move to accept the warrants list in the amount of $2,046,707.51. I'll move to approve a resolution establishing the regular meeting dates for the Village of East Dundee Board of Trustees, Planning, Zoning, and Historic Commission, Arts Council, and the local liquor control commission for the calendar year of 2026. Move to approve a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement accepting planning technical assistance services delivered by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. Move to approve an ordinance authorizing abatement for the tax levy for general obligation bond 2012A, general obligation bond 2012B, general obligation 2016, general obligation 2024 for the Village of East Dundee. And item F, a move to approve an ordinance amending ordinance 96-08, amending section 72.01 of the code regarding parking regulations. Item G, move to approve a resolution authorizing the village administrator to execute a contract with Alliance Insurance Services, Inc. in the amount of $436,713 for general liability and workers' compensation insurance coverage for a one-year term beginning December 1st, 2025. And finally, item H, move to approve a resolution authorizing the village administrator to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of West Dundee for the refurbishment and repair of the pedestrian bridge over the Fox River. Second.
Okay, take
Trustee
roll.
Saviano.
Yes.
Trustee Kunzi.
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Trustee Guma.
Yes.
And Trustee Sauter.
Yes.
All right, moving along. We're at other agenda items. We have A.
I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance granting a Class A liquor license to Garatono's Carol's Corner, Inc., amending Section 116.05B of the code to increase the number of Class A liquor licenses and authorizing a grant of supplemental video gaming terminal lease.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Good?
Well, I did have a question, actually. There's this note in the motion about the terminal, video gaming terminal lease, but there's nothing in the actual ordinance or in the packet about said gaming license. So I'm just wondering, is this just a continuance of what Carol's Corner already has?
Yes.
I see. Very well.
So we aren't applying the new floor space standards to them?
Well, I'll let Eric.
So because the owner is retaining, the current owner is retaining ownership,
Oh,
we're just adding additional owners.
okay.
So there's no
Okay,
change,
got it.
and so there's no triggering of any additional requirements. So it's status
So-
quo.
So the license is still held under the original owner?
She's still on there.
She is still on it, we're just adding additional
Adding
people
forward.
to it?
Yes.
And then, same thing with the liquor license? Is
Yes.
that upgrading it, changing it?
I think it's
No,
the
it's the
exact
same.
same.
It's the same? Okay, so it's just adding the additional?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Doesn't it say in the ordinance we're changing from 4 to 5? Are they at 4 now and they're going to 5?
They're
Or,
at 5. I believe they're at 5 or 6.
because yeah, the language in the ordinance, it looked like it said increasing from 4 to 5.
That might be the classes that need to automatically update in that table. So it's,
Yeah. how many liquor
It's
licenses
not,
there are
how many.
for that classification.
Oh, I see. That's not for the terminals.
people on.
Okay, anything else? Let's do roll call.
Trustee Saviano.
Yes.
Trustee Kunzu.
Yes.
Trustee Mahoney.
Yes.
Trustee Guma.
Going to recuse myself.
Trustee Sauter, excuse me.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, we have a presentation and discussion regarding the East Dundee Police Pension Fund funding level. Do we have anything else that people are waiting for? Doesn't look like. Okay.
Hi, tonight we have a representative from Lauterbach and Amen to do a presentation to the board for our police pension, Todd Schroeder.
Thank you, and thank you for having me out tonight. I'll try to keep this brief, but get through some of the important points related to the police pension fund. Again, my name is Todd Schroeder. We do a lot of actuarial reporting for the police pension fund, both for the funding recommendation as well as financial statement reporting. The presentation we have in here hopefully is a summary of some of the key information, as well as some projections and some look-aheads that we've performed for the police pension fund. So starting on this first page, this is really the summary where we're coming in for the police pension fund for the current year. You can see on the top line under current valuation, our recommendation is coming in at $1,256,895, which is a slight decrease year over year in the recommended funding for the police pension fund. Normally, the way these are calculated, we are expecting them on a regular basis to average about a 3.5% to 4% increase each year. Generally, as payroll increases over time, the contribution is calculated to increase at the same rate. So we did have some gains that brought that down this year, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Before I do that, I want to go down to the third from the bottom. We have our unfunded liability. Right now, that sits at about 8.5, almost 8.6 million in unfunded liability, which right below that gives you a funded percentage currently of about 62% in the police pension fund. I mentioned that the expected contribution is expected to increase on an annual basis. The first line, far right-hand column in here is that 41,400 number. Everything else being equal, that's how much we would have expected the increase to be year over year in the police pension fund recommended contribution. Everything that falls after are factors that caused that to either go up or down in the past year based on actuarial factors or actuarial experience. Most notably, you'll see in that third line, the actuarial experience. This is any demographic experience within the pension fund, so participant movement from active to retired and things like that. New hires all go into this bucket. There was about a $38,000 gain related to that, so we reduced the contribution $38,000 related to that population movement. Most notably, there were 2 new hires that came into the pension fund. We increased the there were 4 new hires. We increased the contribution about $25,000 related to those new hires, but there were 2 members who terminated employment. 2 members terminated employment in the pension fund, and there was about a $60,000 decrease. And that typically happens when folks take a refund of contributions, which is less valuable than an eventual retirement benefit, or they leave with less than 20 years of service and they have to wait till age 60 to start receiving payments. You'll also see at the bottom, contributions came in higher than expected to the pension fund. The village contribution was right on what was recommended previously. There are some additional employee contributions that came in year over year that caused this decrease. The most common situation that causes that is folks transferring service in from another pension fund. So that pension fund sends dollars over and they get put in your employee contribution bucket from an audit perspective. Quick thing on this page, when we're making a recommendation for funding, one of the things we like to do is just kind of remind everybody there's 2 things we're trying to fund towards. And so if you look at that middle column of numbers under current valuation, you'll see our 1.2 million at the bottom, which was the recommendation from the first page. It's really broken up into 2 pieces. The first piece is for all your active members. So for every active member in the pension fund, we're trying to build the fund up on their behalf so that the fund has all the dollars in it to pay their retirement benefits when they retire. So the $312,680 represents that portion of the contribution on behalf of all the active members that are in the pension fund. The next line, I mentioned there is about $8.5 million in unfunded liability. The next line is our recommended payment towards that unfunded liability, and that's about $950,000, bringing us again back to our total recommendation we saw on the first page. So another way to interpret that, if the plan were 100% funded at this point, our recommended contribution would just be the $312,680 to continue to accrue funds as the active members continue to work. This is same as the last page, but this is a 5-year history, just to give you an idea of the progression of the pension fund. I think a couple things of note. One, the very top line, far right-hand column, that actually should say 8.5 million, not 9.5 million. So that's the same 8.5 million we saw on the first page of unfunded liability. So the progress over the past 5 years has been to reduce the unfunded liability from 10.5 million down to 8.5 million. So $2 million paid off in the last 5 years.
Sorry, wait.
Yep, go ahead.
You're saying that in the first row, the 12/31/24, that number is $1 million too high?
This one,
typo.
yeah. This is a typo, yeah. It should be 8,573,904. It's got a 9 on it.
Yeah, that's a big typo.
Yeah, it's the wrong digit for sure. I can send over a new version of this with the 8.5 million, so you have this
It's
chart
understood.
for your records. But this is the unfunded liability on the current year, and it's the 8.5 million. A couple other things of note. When you look at the normal cost column, the column where we're making contributions on behalf of the active members, you see the bump from fiscal 22 to fiscal 23, and that was primarily related to benefit improvements that were put in during that year. So the active members, when consolidation came in, tier 2 active members got some benefit improvements put in as part of the contribution recommendation. I talked about the key demographic changes, but we do have a full list on this. The new hires were the increase in contribution. The third bullet was the terminated folks that caused the decrease in contribution. So when we saw the $37,000 decrease for actuarial experience, it was a combination of these factors here. On this page, we have just a breakdown of your active membership by age and service. If we look at the lower right-hand bucket, each box has 2 numbers in it. The first number is Tier 1 membership, and the second number is Tier 2 membership. So generally, Tier 2 members who have a lower benefit structure are anybody who was hired after January 1, 2011, and did not have service in a prior police pension fund before that date. So currently you have 6 Tier 1 members and 10 Tier 2 members as part of your actives in your pension fund. This page, the building block, the key thing that we look at when we're trying to come up with all these funding numbers is we're trying to project what the pension fund is going to have to pay out in the future in benefit payments. So if you look at the middle line there, current benefit payments, you're just over $1,062,300 for fiscal 2024. 5 years from now, we expect that number to be between 1.4 and 1.5 million in benefit payments going out from the pension fund. 10 years from now, we expect that number to be between 1.7 and 1.8 million in cash outflow from the pension fund. So these are all the cash outflows we're measuring and we're estimating in the future. This includes COLAs for current retirees, as well as the anticipation that new folks will go from active to retired status and begin to receive payments from the pension fund.
But this doesn't account for any increase in our total staff?
Pardon me?
Does this account for any increase in our total number of officers?
No, it does not. No, as part of the pension funding process, the data we use is a snapshot at each fiscal year end.
Question.
Yep.
The total unfunded liability, does that include the surplus that we were putting in this year? We had some general fund surplus, like
It was only 200,000.
or yeah, 230,000.
Oh.
This information is reflective of 2024 budget year, so it doesn't account for anything in this current year.
Got it.
This information being what?
From the actuarial report.
all backward looking?
Yeah, so we're 62% funded as of December 31st of last year. So hopefully this year, we're like 64%, but we won't know that until they audit this year.
Yeah, December 31, 2025, we'll start a new valuation process. Anything that's happened in the population will come in, and any additional contributions that have come in during 2025 will be reflected as well. And they'll go, that line we had about the contribution changing related to contribution experience would be impacted by an additional 100,000 coming in. Another thing we did, it didn't have a giant impact on the numbers, but we did have a line on the page of the changes year over year related to assumption changes. One of the things we do on a every 4 to 5 year basis is we do a full-scale review of our police pension funds in Illinois. It's about 180 police pension funds, and we look through the membership and we look back at the past 5 years to try to determine things like trends in retirement, or how long are folks living in retirement and receiving their benefits, or how often are we seeing incidents of disability as part of this process. So we review all of our assumptions, we bring them all current for the current year. So we did go through that process before this report, and all those new rates are reflected in this report. The impact was a $4,100 increase in the contribution. So minor impact. We saw some factors that increased the contribution and some factors that decrease the contribution.
So if we were to have like 2 new officers next year, it would be a year of them working before you would get the data to assume what we contribute to the pension fund moving forward after they've already.
Correct. Yeah, whenever somebody new is hired, it'll be the next December 31st. All the data for your membership in your pension fund is filed with the Illinois Department of Insurance as of each December 31st. And then that's the data that we use to do our valuation. Quick note, this is just your assets, and you can see this in the audit. That Department of Insurance annual statement filing I just mentioned has information on the assets. This is the change in your assets year over year. Of note, the rate of return was 8.65%, higher than the expectation. For the actuarial process, in order to try to stabilize contributions relative to market experience, we look at the past 5 years rather than following the market year by year, just because the market can be volatile. And this is a long-term planning and long-term obligation for the retirement fund.
But looking at the last 5 years isn't necessarily indicative of the future 5 years, because we've consolidated all of these pension funds at this point, right? And that only happened a couple of years ago.
Correct.
So is that maybe why we see this 8.65, or no? That's just the year that we had.
Yeah, the 8.65 was largely driven by those consolidated assets.
Yeah.
I say largely because it depends how much cash has to be held locally to make benefit payments and things like that. So not 100% of the fund is fully invested in there, but most of the fund is invested in the consolidated assets. They had a greater than 6.5% return for the year.
Yeah.
Right now, when we look at your 5-year history, it's 2 years of returns that were greater than expected, 2 years that were less than expected, and then going back to the 5 years ago, those returns were greater than expected. So you got a nice mix, which helps keep the contribution a little more stable through that 5-year period.
So if we were fully funded, our return on investments would be enough to cover the benefit payments.
Yeah, if you're fully funded, your return on investments, and your return came in at 8.65%, you would see likely some potential credits towards your contribution for the excess performance.
Okay. So it makes sense to get fully funded as soon as we can.
A couple other things we look at from a risk management perspective. On this page, we just note that the part of what we're trying to do, as I mentioned, we're trying to fund everybody up who's active so that the money's in there to pay the retirement benefits. So theoretically, if we were 100% funded, we'd have all the money for all of our retirees right now that's needed to pay their benefits. That first bullet says, we don't have that yet, continue to close that gap. There's 13.6 million as of 12/31/2024 in the pension fund. The money we'd like to have set aside for current inactive members in the pension fund right now is about 17.6 million. The second piece is just it's a ratio that we watch. It's what percent of your fund are you paying out in benefit payments? Right now you're at 7.82%. We like to keep that south of 8% is ideal, but anywhere south of 10% is okay. So you guys are just below that 8% figure. When that number starts to creep above 12, 13, 14%, you are having to keep a lot of cash locally to make benefit payments, and it can affect your ability to get the investment returns that are coming from the consolidated fund. Everything I've talked about so far is based on our recommended contribution. Our recommendation includes a recommendation that you fund for 100% of the benefits, because ultimately the fund is going to have to pay 100% of the benefits. And so when we have our payment towards unfunded liability, it's targeting 100% funding target going forward. The state has a requirement of a 90% funding target by 2040 at a specific point in time. That could change. It has changed over the years. It was 100% by 2020, 100% by 2033. Currently, it's 90% by 2040. And there's legislation being kicked around for a 90% by 2055, potentially as well. This is the alternative contribution we have in our report. This is based on a 90% funding target. It's not part of our recommendation, but to satisfy state statute, you should be at least contributing towards a 90% funding target. So we do include this in our report as well. And that contribution came down year over year. And then there's two quick things in here we show for funding purposes, but really this is stuff that goes into financial statements. It's part of financial statement reporting. One of the things that the Government Accounting Standards Board has us do is try to predict if this fund is going to be able to pay all the benefits to all the current members on a going forward basis. So again, this is a closed group projection, just simply based on the Government Accounting Standards rules for those projections. And so the first thing we have to do is figure out what are the average contributions that are going in. GASB, Government Accounting Standards, tell us to do a 5-year look back of how much has gone in contributions related to the actuarially determined contribution. So you can see on this chart, on that far right-hand column, about 90% of the actuarially determined contribution has gone in on average over the past 5 years. Top 3 lines, you can see it's been 100% that basically the last 3 years. What that means then from the government accounting standpoint, if we run solvency on the closed group, so that blue dashed line at the bottom is just the expected benefit payments going forward. So those increase for a while and then they decrease, and out by year 80, it's anticipated that your youngest active member will be getting paid out their last benefit out there at year 80. And so we'd like to see the black line also get out to year 80. Right now you're at 2072, so about 46, 47 years out. If contributions for the next couple years come in at the 100% mark as they have for the last 3 years, that will take care of that. This chart in 2 years, with 2 more years of 100% funding, will show full solvency as part of this process. I've got a couple sets of projections. Maybe I'll stop. Were there any questions on anything else in this part of the presentation? We got words. So there's a few sets of projections that we ran to look at some potential scenarios of what funding looks like. This one here is based on our recommended contribution and that contribution being put in for the next 11 to 12 years. And what you can see is the path you're on is to have your unfunded liability paid off in that 11 to 12 years. So the contribution, as I mentioned, it's expected to increase over time as payroll is expected to increase over time. until the unfunded liability is paid off, and then it drops down. In total, I think looking at the amortization column, for example, in order to fund 100% of your unfunded liability and do so in the next 12 years, it's going to cost about $13 million. So it's about $13 million in contributions to pay down $8.5 million in unfunded liability over this period. The reason for the discrepancy is unfunded liability is dollars we want in the pension fund. They're not in the pension fund today, but when we want dollars in the pension fund, it's not so a dollar can pay $1 of future benefits, it's $1 can pay $2 of future benefits because of investment earnings. So any unfunded liability grows year over year based on the expected investment earnings at 6.5%. So that's why it costs money to carry unfunded liability, and it'll ultimately cost about $13 million to pay off the $8.5 million in the next 12 years.
So, the question that I always have
Yep.
is if we were to get a bond right now for our shortfall, $8.5 million, would it cost more than $13 million to finance that over the next 12 years? Because not only would we be caught up, but then, as you said earlier, we have the potential to be getting better than expected returns, which might mean credits back.
So we've been, over the past 5 years, we've been asked that question quite a bit. It certainly was, it's much more close now. It's much closer now. It is an analysis we can run, and we can talk, if you have bond folks that you work with, we can talk with them. I will say 5 years ago, rates were very low on bonds, generally speaking, and so we saw this work out fairly nice, and I'll say a little more obviously than it might nowadays in today's rate environment. But it is certainly an option that some folks have gone through.
Well, that is the answer I get every year. Is we'll look at it, and then I never hear back, but.
Yeah, if you want us to talk to the bond folks and see what the rates are in these days, and they can run out what a payment schedule would look like on the bond, we could certainly do the before and after comparison.
I mean, I would like to see that personally.
More information, the better. Yeah.
I've been watching this since Skokie did pension bonds 4 or 5 years ago when interest rates were really low. I think they borrowed $200 million, which is astronomical amount of money, but.
Who did?
Skokie, to do exactly what's being described here. One risk of that is when you put $200 million in the market all at once instead of spread it over time, there's a risk that you may lose a lot of it based on, a pandemic or something else. So one of my questions is, currently, as I understand it, we pay twice a year. This $1.2 million that we're being recommended to contribute, is it realistic or possible, or does the pension fund even allow for us to do like a monthly or quarterly payments, so those payments can get in faster versus waiting until the end of the year? Because I think we make the second payment in December.
Yeah, really, in terms of a payment schedule, if you wanted to do it monthly, you certainly could. There's nothing precluding you from doing that. And I will say on the bond thing, you're 100% correct. When you bond out and you put a large amount into the pension fund at one time, there's definitely a lot of market timing risk compared to what typically happens in the pension fund year over year, putting the 1.2 million in or continuing to contribute on that behalf. Just because you're getting in at one market point, and if it turns out to be high, then it could immediately throw you into a higher cost situation the next year because you're still paying down the bonds and you now have unfunded liability to deal with. And on the other side, it can work out well, but there's much more risk from a market timing standpoint.
There's also, and I mean, this is an argument against what I'm proposing, I suppose, but it also becomes a debt on our books, whereas this is a theoretical debt. It's not really on our books. That would become an actual number that we are.
Right, our credit rating.
Yeah.
What's that gonna do? But on the other hand, doing, bonds over several years for different portions of this would help mitigate and spread out the risk of the
Right.
volatility in market.
Yeah, so,
So I like where you're going,
yeah.
but I also, it's kind of like what we do in the private sector with, putting something in every month or every year.
I'm on the pension board, and two things that get repeated often, this is not relevant to your presentation, but relevant for the board's information, is that the folks that we work with that take our money and put it in the consolidated fund, and then also manage the withdrawals and then the disbursements to the members that are retired, they talk a lot about how their most important priority is getting that money and then getting it into the market as quick as possible, so that there's not like a delay between, when a member transfers in and we get that money from a different jurisdiction, transferred over, then getting it into the consolidated fund, so that we're not missing any time in the market, because longevity in the market is
key.
But they also said market timing is basically like 12 days in the last 5 years have accounted for the largest growth in the stock market since like in the last 25 years. So if you were market timing, even personally, and you missed these 12 days over the course of the last many years, you would have missed out on all of the gains. So it's very interesting how it's really important to spread that risk, but also Ryan, I'm very impressed because you've been on the board since May, and you have said everything I could ever hope to hear from somebody, which is, if we pay this down sooner, we will save money. So it's really important to get it funded at 100% as soon as possible.
Are these recommended contributions, are they numbers that our police pension board agree with, or do they have their own numbers?
I'll let you answer that one.
They agree with these numbers. Generally speaking, I think from a police pension standpoint, they would, police pension funds want to see 100% funding. So on this basis, and some of these projections are not the 100% basis, they're the 90% basis, but I would say from the 100% basis standpoint.
They also make a recommendation every year to the board, which I can't remember if I included it in the packet, and their recommendation for next year is to fully fund it. So I don't know if they've seen this projections report.
Their recommendation is the 1.2 million, or
Also, I wanted to add, it wasn't until recently that we hit the $10 million range in our
Correct.
investments, so that also opened us up to the ability to invest in other things. So there's also caps on what we're allowed to invest in given our size. So that didn't happen until 2 years ago.
Yeah, once consolidation came in, then it opened up the asset allocation. Prior to that, if you were under $10 million, they restricted how much you could be exposed to equities, and I think it was 35% equities plus another 10 if you did it in mutual funds. So during those periods where fixed income was relatively low returns, there had to be more than 50% fixed income exposure.
Our recommended contribution is actually 1.3, because that's the first coming up on 2026. This 1.257 was from January 1st this year, right?
24.
So the
Oh, it's back?
24.
Okay.
yeah, so these results were all run as of December 31, 2024. So it's this
Oh, okay.
it's this first number. These are all, everything after it is an estimate of what the future number could look like.
Okay.
Do you know offhand what we contributed in 2025, roughly?
The full amount for the year was $1,270,000.
Does that include that surplus payment?
No, that's just the full amount.
Okay. So we're ahead of these numbers, which is good.
Yes, we should be.
And we do have let me just jump down. I'm going to jump down too. I'll go back to the second one. This third scenario is one that then throws in an extra $100,000 a year. And there's two ways to look at this one. The way we run it out here is if an extra $100,000 is put in each year, basically the unfunded liability is going to be paid off a year sooner than it would have been under the other scenario. The other way you could run this that's not reflected in here is that those $100,000 additional contributions reduce future contributions, so you stay on the same payoff schedule you're on, but you see a reduction come through in future recommended contributions because the unfunded liability has an extra payment that's knocking down extra principal basically off that amount. So it's the third scenario we have in here.
So, okay. That's attractive, and I guess we are doing more than that this year, are we not?
Right.
Because of our surplus?
Correct.
Amazing. Love that.
This, I'm jumping backwards one now to this, to the second scenario here. This was just, instead of paying at the 100%, if you were doing the statutory minimum, this is an illustration of what they're trying to do with the current state rules, they being the state of Illinois, with the rules that are in place. And that payoff schedule is another 16 years. One thing you'll notice is that over the 16-year period, it's about almost 17 million in payments towards that unfunded liability. And not only that, but it's only, there's liability that's not being used in this process because the state requires 90% funding. 10% of the liability is being ignored as part of the process. So extending the amortization out, these payments here are much lower early on, but you continue to lose the interest and that continues to build up over time as well. And another thing, just to kind of compare to the schedule, this first schedule, even without the extra dollars, you'll see at 1/1/2037, we're anticipating there to be about 31.5 million in assets. On this page, on your path to the 90% funding at 1/1/37, the assets are expected to be about 22.4 million. So that's about $9 million behind using statutory minimum funding versus the recommended funding.
That's more behind than we are now.
Correct, yeah, it continues to compound that. And part of the reason for that is the state minimum doesn't require you to even pay interest on the unfunded liability. So if you pay the state minimum, your unfunded liability is expected to grow over time based on the interest component.
So we don't do that.
There was a question earlier, and this is maybe will help answer that question related to new people coming into the pension fund. So if staffing were to increase, folks come in and not necessarily having folks retire or terminate. So this was what if staffing was increased by 3 officers during 2029 at some point. And so what you see, and I think the focal point here is that this part of the contribution for active members, when we get to 1/1/2030, so the first time that these folks will be in the pension fund at a fiscal year end, you see about a $46,000 increase in the recommended contribution in 1/1/2030 on behalf of these active members. So that's really, and then that carries, so those numbers then carry forward. Prior to that, it would have been a $5,000 or $6,000 increase in that same number. So probably about 40,000 of that would be related to the new active members. Those are based on 3 sample active members that we talked about. It could be more or less depending on the demographics of those active members. It's usually higher for more experienced hires, lower for early career hires, tier 2 members as part of the process.
Sorry, that doesn't make sense. That seems like it's way under, right? Because if I look at our current schedule in the 2037, the total recommended contribution would be 17,397,000. And if we add 3 people, that only goes up like $500. That seems weird, right? Or am I not reading this right?
So most of the, most of the additional contribution for your active members goes just to that first column, that normal cost column. So this is the part of the contribution that would be expected to increase. As time passes, if those members were to generate some sort of actuarial loss, so let's say you had a member experience a duty disability and start receiving their pension for duty disability, you'd likely see a liability bump that then would show up in this other column. But those, right now, the way this was run, the projections are run without the anticipation, sort of on the expected basis, so without the anticipation of gains or losses in the future.
Okay.
Scott, the big difference is in the first column.
I mean, it's a difference. I don't know if it's a big difference. It's only $300,000 difference. I guess that's what it is. Okay.
Yes, roughly 40 grand a year, and then that part would be expected to increase over time, that 40 grand extra, as pay goes up over time.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is we're not having to play catch-up on the 3 new guys.
Correct, that's exactly right. So if you look at
That's why there's not a huge difference.
Correct. If you look at your contribution today, and in our full report at the beginning, it says your contribution is X% of pay, but a lot of that is for unfunded liability. There's 3/4 of the contribution is related to unfunded liability. New members who come into the pension fund don't bring unfunded liability with them. It could happen in the future, but it doesn't come in with them. We just start picking up normal costs for that.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So that's a lot of numbers. Were there any questions on the projections?
I think we asked them all.
Yeah.
No, good questions for sure. So I have a note jotted down regarding the bond analysis, and so I can reach out to Brandis and see who you guys work with from that perspective, and start to get some numbers put together and things like that. If you'd like to take a look at it, like I say, it'll probably show something that comes in relatively close. It could be on either side, but it's worth taking a look at.
Erica, are you
Thank
gonna
you.
look at monthly payments?
Yes.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, discussion and direction regarding proposed water and wastewater rate schedules for 2026. Is that you? Is that what this is? I haven't read it yet.
All right, last year, we brought before the board a draft of a water sewer rate study.
Yeah.
And within that plan, we discussed an 8-year capital projects plan for about $8 million, $7 million allocated to our water capital projects, and $800,000 allocated to our sewer capital projects. And those are a list of the projects that we've identified. However, it does not include anything for facilities improvements for our water or wastewater treatment plants, or any water main replacements or any other capital projects. We are budgeting in 2026, I guess, an updated version of the water and sewer rate study to account for some of the other changes that we've discussed, and potentially the inability to receive IEPA funding as we initially discussed last year. For the
Why do we have an inability to get funding?
Great question.
Okay.
So when we pursue IEPA funding, and Phil, you can step in if I miss anything, we are competing with the entire state. So any projects from any other municipality is also considered in their ability to fund projects for the year. So in '25, we did pursue funding for a standpipe rehabilitation, and we were denied. We came in about middle range against other projects, also seeking IEPA funding. We are budgeting to have Baxter and Woodman reapply, given that we have done some additional work to kind of push our project forward on the design and engineering side.
Did they give
Hoping.
a reason why we were denied?
We are ranked against over 200 other projects throughout the state for agencies that are also pursuing loan funding. And they have a scoring system, and our project did not score high enough. So they have a certain number of available funds that they can award to different loan applications. And unfortunately, our project did not score high enough to be selected for funding.
How do they score it, by necessity?
I don't know exactly, there's a very lengthy booklet that talks about their scoring ranking, and they list all the statewide projects. So our project was kind of middle, but I think one thing they also consider is shovel readiness, project readiness. So what we're doing is having Baxter Woodman design and bid the project here in the coming months to put us in a more construction-ready state for the project. And hopefully the state will recognize that.
Okay.
And will score higher in 2026.
Yeah, that'll help our score for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they also look at, there's a lot of things that they look at in terms of, the type of project, to the, how does it impact the community, the necessity for whatever water system improvement. So there's two programs, there's wastewater and water. And so we're competing against 250 water-related projects statewide.
And a lot of the funding is allocated based on priority of need. So if you have a community with a lesser ability to pay, then the funding gets prioritized to those communities. And there's a lot of, if you've been seeing things in the news about just really bad water systems throughout the state, and how there's some communities where there's a very low income population who's paying, whose water system is very unreliable and also leaks a lot. So you have communities where people don't have the ability to pay, but also have lots of water just being wasted. That a lot of the funding has been but focused on addressing those types of needs. So we've talked about trying to make our application more competitive, but Brandis and I and Phil have also talked about, if we don't get this funding next year, we're sort of going to reposition ourselves and just look at regular bonding. Because IEPA funding is great if you get it, but it's not worth continuing to wait to get, it's a better interest rate. That's awesome. We save money on interest, but we also can't afford to keep waiting to get a bond we may not get.
Yeah, because we've had some projects wait 20 years, like the Lions Park. How long has that been waiting for funding that we decided to finally just move forward?
It's like 8 years, I think.
Okay,
We were
felt
applying
like
for
20.
grants for that particular project, but yeah, we waited a long time.
Yeah. So we may just have to look at regular bonds.
Okay.
In 2025, we requested the board consider a 5% increase for our water sewer rates. We are also requesting or asking the board to consider an additional 5% increase for our water sewer rates. Again, in consideration of our capital projects plans that we know we have, and also in consideration of completing another water sewer rate study to help us firm up rates as we move forward beyond
I just want to
2026.
say, not you guys, but that rate study recommended we increase water rates 10%,
Yes.
not 5%. We decided on 5%,
Right.
but the recommendation was 10% for what, 8 years? Each year, 10%?
It was a big
Yes.
jump, yes.
Yeah.
For the capital improvements?
We would Yes, potentially increase the rates to help offset the cost of what we know to be capital projects moving forward.
So that's an excellent point you make, because if we were following the rate study, we would have done 10% last year, and the rate study would be recommending 10% again this year. We did 5 last year, and we're saying, last year, we heard you say 10% was too much. So we weren't gonna come to you again and say, let's do another 10%, but we're saying, let's try to get by one more year with 5%, see how many of these projects we can get through, see if we can get this loan, see if we have other economic development initiatives that yield other revenue options for us to potentially consider paying for some of this without having to increase water rates. Our water rates are, not the highest, but they're not the lowest, and we wanna keep it relatively affordable, but also continue to chip away at all of these infrastructure improvements that are necessary. So if we don't find another way to fund this gap next year with other revenues, we would have to look at a more substantial increase.
Do you have a comparison chart with other local
I
municipalities?
do not have that right now, no.
We have that from last year's discussion. I can send it to you.
I think we were right in the middle,
Yeah.
if I recall. Any other questions?
I would just say, and I understand we're looking at capital improvements, and those are very important.
Mhm.
But every time you guys present to us the budget, it shows the water and sewer fund at a profit. Every single time. I've never seen it at a negative.
Mhm.
So as we are increasing our rates, we are funding our
Yes.
water system.
100%.
And we are using some of those funds, reserves, to fund projects in the current, or in the 2026 budget. Also keeping in mind, we must have a 35% reserve, just in case something catastrophic happens. So what you see in the budget this year, or I'm sorry, in 2026, is actually, we're under our 35% reserve, so we will have to make a transfer from
Okay.
potentially the general fund to ensure that we are
I see.
stable.
Very interesting.
That's if we keep the rates flat, or is that with the 5%?
Yes, this does not, the budget that I will present does not consider a significant increase. The 5% increase is not factored in.
Do you want to ask?
Well, the answer is yes. So President Pearson brought up that we have been discussing with the possibility of working with the Fox River Valley Water Reclamation District forward. So, they have had interest for many years in acquiring our wastewater facilities, and then they would operate that, and then we would just pay them to do it for us. They do this for many other communities. So we have, Brian and Phil are meeting with them next week, and then we've invited them to come to a board meeting in January to discuss this option. It may or may not yield some cost savings. So if it does, great. If it doesn't, they'll just steady as she go, keep going. So, but it's worth looking into. There's always a risk when you outsource this because you lose control.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also economy of scale if they run multiple other plants and, have expertise to, figure out how to run it efficiently. So we're going to go through that whole exercise of engaging with them, having them come if the board wants to proceed with us, doing some due diligence around evaluating the plant assets and looking at what it would potentially save, then we'll start doing that. If not, then we won't. But that will be in January.
I think that'd be really interesting.
I just want to say that for people listening, this is not a private organization. It is a public
Correct.
organization.
Correct.
We wouldn't be
Well,
selling
yeah.
our water to a private
Wastewater.
company, which a lot of towns do. But I don't think we should do
It
that.
won't be like the parking meter deal in Chicago.
Exactly.
Yeah, and every
Oh, great.
every municipality that is a part of Forward has a seat on the board. So you still have a seat at the table. It's very similar to Quad Common.
Okay.
It's just our wastewater treatment
Right.
plants. So.
Yes.
We'll keep our water, please.
Right.
Yeah, definitely interested in learning more about that, just for the sake of, again, being smart with our assets and, seeing if there is a possibility
Is that
to
it?
get a, lower rate.
You done? You're here for the tax one? I'm sorry.
Honestly speaking.
I'm sorry. I thought you were just talking to her specifically.
No, I'm sorry, I should have
sorry.
spoken louder with more conviction.
You are very quiet. I feel like I'm doing
Okay.
this.
That's it.
So generally, it seems like there's a consensus to proceed with 5 and 5.
Yes.
All right, let's go on to, moving on to D, discussion and direction regarding the 2026 tax levy.
Okay. Again, we are recommending a 5% increase. This year's tax levy was $950,200, and with the 5% increase, it will be $997,710. Our tax levy is earmarked specifically to pay for our police contribution. So 2026's contribution will be 1.25, and the general fund will cover the difference of about $260,000.
Seems like every year we increase that tax levy, and every year we're about $250,000.
Yeah.
Okay. That includes, we've gotten some new properties online.
Yes. And
So
includes
while it
everything.
is a 5% in the increase in the levy, it wouldn't actually probably be a 5% increase on people's tax bills.
No, I would say probably $50 increase for the village's side.
Yes, of course, as always, East Dundee is the best.
So here, this slide shows kind of a breakdown of what the village's portion of a tax bill is. So in total for 2024, the total tax extension was over 350 million, and the village's portion was the 942,000, even though we levied for 950,000. A portion, this is just for Kane County, so the rest of our portion comes from Cook County, the little sliver we have in Cook County. So the village's portion of the tax bill that residents receive is about 0.26%. So we're pretty small
Little
piece
red
of the
line.
pie,
So it's just a little bit to each homeowner.
yes. Any questions?
Just an eyebrow's worth
Yes.
for Benjamin.
A little teeny bit. Any questions?
Okay.
If everybody's generally in agreement that that's the right number, that will be on the board agenda for November 17th for approval.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, discussion regarding the village's hotel tax and the inclusion of short-term rental properties.
Who's giving us the background on that?
Caleb. So this came up because we use a company called LocalGov to collect all of our home rule sales taxes, our streaming tax, our gas tax. And they have, as part of their add-on services, have evaluated some of our existing ordinances and making some recommendations on where they see gaps in sort of our existing policies. And so Caleb has been working on this because he's our guru at collecting all of the taxes that companies fail to remit to us. So I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and just any questions you have, but essentially, in preparation for some developments that would have boutique lodging, we are trying to, we already have the hotel tax on the books, we're trying to do some updates and cleanups on the code so we could implement this in January if the board so chose. And I guess two main things to highlight. In order to do short-term rentals, which is kind of the catalyst of what started this, is we would, if the board would like to add short-term rentals online, companies like Airbnb, Vrbo, those types of companies, we would have to add specific language that village attorney and I have been working on that would include those, but we don't currently allow it in the definition, and we'd have to work with the Planning, Zoning, and Historic Commission to create a permissible use before we define it. So that would be, if the board wanted to move in that direction, that's a couple of the action items we would need to take. Yes, sir.
How many Airbnbs and Verbos do we have in East Dundee?
I don't believe I don't know, I can't speak to Airbnbs and Verbos, but we do have a couple short-term rental units in the village, in
I
downtown.
think like 3 or 4, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have to have a business license for that usage of
So-
your home or a property that you own?
Every municipality has the ability to regulate that in the way they so choose, and currently there isn't any regulation in East Dundee for that.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of Airbnbs fly under the radar.
Yes.
And so if there were, and that would be understandable because they'd want to keep their costs down or just pocket the tax or whatever if there was one. But it seems like beyond just adding this to the tax documentation, are there other business license requirements or things like that to help be able to track that?
I mean, one of the most important things with the short-term rentals is the inspection, just to ensure adequate safe escape if fire, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, all those things.
Have we done any inspections on?
So we
short
currently
terms?
have an inspection program for standard rentals, if you are
Okay.
leasing for 1 year. So we have all of those inventoried, and you must get a rental, must be registered. And so through the process of registration, then you get inspected every 3 years. So in this proposal, we would also want to inspect those short-term rental units to ensure compliance with safety regulations. And also, there are a handful that pop up here and there that serve the bricks or people having weddings and things. So we don't have a hotel, so it does serve a purpose. And, with the anticipated lumberyard redevelopment, there is going to be a handful of Airbnb units versus the regular standard hotel portion of it. And that, the way it's been explained to me that those units might shift and vary depending on which one's doing better at any given point in time. So we would like to collect tax on that. And interestingly, I was at the International City Managers Conference last week in Tampa, and I talked to the Airbnb vendor, and I talked about the fact that we were going to be talking about this soon, and he said his preference was that all villages create the ordinance such that the Airbnb and the Verbos are expected to collect the tax at the point of sale instead of if I was running my own Airbnb, I would just remit it on my own voluntarily. A, it just is a lot more work for somebody who's running the Airbnb, and B, because in municipalities where that's not in place, if they put it on, so let's say Airbnb puts it on, but Vrbo doesn't, it makes the rates look like they're not comparable, and so they were losing business. So they felt like it was a competitive disadvantage, and they actually ended up suing Vrbo to force them to do it in certain states where that wasn't in place. And so actually what he did say was he wishes that the statewide level they would implement this, because it's much easier to do statewide than every single municipality, but that's lots of lobbying that they have to take care of on their own. But
I noticed
Interesting.
just working with Airbnb on some personal stuff, that there's now, where it used to be like the nightly rate, now there's the all-inclusive of all fees and taxes, total cost, that they roll up for you, so it's not like that surprise, at the end.
Does West Dundee have this tax?
I actually called somebody that owns a Airbnb in West Dundee, and they said, yes, they do, and it's 6%.
Yeah.
They also said the state charges 6% as well. So the effective rate is 12%, according to this person.
Yeah, no, the state can charge 6, municipalities cannot.
What's that?
Municipalities cannot charge 6, you can charge 5.
Well, according to him, West Dundee charges 6, but maybe he was wrong. That's
Well,
possible.
they unless they got a special exemption from the state, which is in the statute, I'll just be silent. I'm East Dundee's attorney, so I'll tell you, you can take 5%.
Interesting, okay.
I thought as a home rule community, we could charge whatever rate we wanted.
Well, the statute says limits any municipality to 5% except for those that are listed in the state statute.
On hotels specifically, or Airbnbs, short-term rentals?
Hotels, short term.
Interesting.
So my thought is we don't have very many, we don't have a couple, 3 that we know of right now. So it would be, I'm all for getting more income in, that's what her and I have been working on a lot, but, would we be hurting our small Airbnbs right now more so than helping them? You know, is this something we can implement a year from now when we start, you know, people start regularly using them? Because I know the ones over here aren't being used all the time. There's just a couple here and there a month. So is it worth to put that burden on our small business owners for, I don't know, what is it gonna be, $10, $20 each time somebody rents it for the day or the 2 days? You know, I don't know.
I think it does simplify it. I used to run an Airbnb, but it was in North Carolina, but recently sold it. But they, in North Carolina, did collect it so that we didn't have to do all the math with our accountant, because you're supposed to pay your local taxes, and as an Airbnb, we wanted to. So having it just included in all of the upfront billing and the website and automatically sent to us the way Netflix does now.
Correct.
Is ideal, I think, for the person running it, because it's hard for them to tell what taxes do I need to pay, could you just take it out for me?
I understand that, but do we want to charge that right now? Or do we want these people to be better established and then implement it? Is it worth establishing it right now just for the small gains that we may be getting?
I think it'd
The
be,
sooner the better.
I think to have it in place since the direction we're
Okay.
headed, I think. And it seems like it might be a negligible amount.
Yeah, it can't be that much right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more we get, if we're anticipating more of them built in the lumberyard district, and then once they get established, then to add a tax would be less welcome than just
Yeah.
this is set up and it follows
Agreed.
statutes of what the other surrounding towns do. I think is better than switching it.
And it is worth adding that if the board, so basically, if the board wanted to move forward, we would finalize an ordinance to bring back at a future board meeting. We would also work on creating a new application, because as Erica mentioned, we have a application for traditional rentals. We would create a new application for registration for these short-term rentals. So, and that would increase inspections for the building department and additional work with the applications and filling
Annual
those.
inspections? Is that what they're gonna be, or is it every 3 years?
Would it be every 3 years like the apartments?
I mean, we would recommend the same schedule, but,
Right.
you know, if the board wanted us to do it more frequently than that, we certainly could.
Okay.
And what would the inspections look like? That wasn't something that we had with our Airbnb at least, but would it be to the same standards and rules that a hotel would have of interconnected sprinkler systems and like most Airbnbs probably aren't at that standard, I would guess.
Probably not.
I'd say like 5% of them would probably pass that. So that would be what I would worry if I had one in this town about that rule,
Right.
more than paying the taxes.
But wouldn't the standards be more like some of the homes that are broken up into apartment rentals? Where it's more of a residential rental inspection as opposed to a large building? And there's always more risk when there's more people, more rooms and things like that, so.
Mark, do you inspect any of the rental properties?
No, right now, no, because the fire code limits it, it falls under residential code of Chris. So Chris will do inspections. I do inspect commonways and common areas. That is changing. Airbnb is important, brought up in the fire code, so the new code I'm looking to update is in 2027. That will really put me in place within the structure itself. Plus, business licensing, like you guys were saying, really changes it too. Right now, we don't know who's an Airbnb.
Mhm.
You know, so I can't go in there and say I need to inspect it because you're operating a business, because there's no proof that it's actually a business.
Right.
But the
And Summers.
sprinkler regulation is only required under new construction. So that wouldn't be like if I owned a home and I turned it into an Airbnb tomorrow, I would put a sprinkler system in. That would only be new construction.
Yeah, it would be on residential.
Yeah, would we have a different set of standards for Airbnb inspections? Like some of them are just, you can have my couch and it's not even a dedicated
A room in the
private
basement.
space. So there's a range of Airbnbs.
I mean, I've seen, I mean, many of us have stayed in Airbnbs and seen different types of regulations that local municipalities require. Usually it's something as minimal as an exit route or the safety, the fire extinguishers or, stuff like that. I don't think that we would put anything onerous on anybody, and I would think we would align it more closely with our residential inspections that are for standard rentals. So I wouldn't want to put anything more cumbersome than what we already have in
Yeah.
place.
Because really all it is just quick little inspection. It's not like it's a business. It's literally somebody's house that turns into an Airbnb. So we can't even go into their house unless they turn it into an Airbnb, and it may just be a room that they're, and then what are we inspecting? Like one room or the entire building?
Typically, you inspect the HVAC, plumbing, GFCI outlets, basements, just looking at a list that we have here,
Smoke detectors.
smoke detectors, entry, exit, stairway, clearances, the typical stuff. Nothing onerous like installing a full sprinkler system.
All right, so.
And Airbnb might have some guidelines on, because they do push you to provide these minimum safety things for your house, so maybe they have a checklist that would be useful for us,
Oh, yeah, that's.
since they do have
There would be
advocates to work with.
exterior too, like is the deck safe, is the hand railings
Yeah.
compliant?
Okay.
All right.
Seems like
Thanks, Caleb.
consensus to proceed.
Yeah, thank you.
My vote is no.
No
That's
till
what
what?
I'm voting, so. I think we're a little early, like President Pearson said. I think
No
we're-
on, just to clarify, no on tax or no on regulation or no on both?
I would say more of the regulation for me. I think the tax sounds reasonable. I think the market will demand, if you don't have a nice place, people aren't gonna stay there. And it doesn't show well on Airbnb. I looked, there's 4 in East Dundee currently. They all seem to be downtown. I didn't even know we had any, but I just learned there's 4, so.
To me, the cheaper the better for people, because then they're gonna be here more, hopefully, or they're gonna wanna stay right here in town and utilize our businesses. But
We're becoming a destination place though, so I figure like time is now to figure
Yeah,
it
me
out, get
too.
it done, and then we don't have to think about it again when everything gets busier.
I'm more concerned about the safety aspect of it,
Mhm.
and that's where I want the regulations to come in. And, yeah, I agree, the market drives it, as well as reviews and everything else like that. But I'd rather get going on it now and kind of get things settled all at once. If we're gonna tax it, we should have the inspections and all that kind of license tied up in a bow.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm for the taxing and then a middle ground on some kind of inspection, but not as strict as a hotel,
Right.
just because I think that
Yeah.
would shut them all down
Agreed.
Agreed.
at a basic level. But I don't know if that gets us in legal trouble if we set a new level that's not.
My thought on it is this, you should treat them similar to you would a residential home that's renting out their house for a year. Again, keep in mind, these are businesses, they're earning money on some level, so it's in the best interest to make sure that they're safe. And they're at least compliant with the code on a basic level.
Scott, anything?
Well, if we're saying that West Dundee is 5%, I think we're not gonna make any money from this.
That was my other
I
thought.
think we should go 3%. Say
Actually,
we're cheaper.
East Dundee is 6% in
No,
their,
West Dundee is
I'm sorry, West Dundee is 6% in their code. I'll have to look at that. I don't know. State statute was pretty clear, but.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I think
Doing
it's the
something like that.
properties that are gonna really drive it. I don't think people look at the tax between one village and another village. neighboring village. When I was, you know.
No,
I-
they just click, what's the total price, and it's why the total price is, yeah.
Erica, to be clear though, you said the business owner, the homeowner will have to calculate their own fees, like they can't pass it on to the,
No, we were recommending that the corporation that the Airbnb or the
Takes the
Vrbo
booking.
collects the tax at the
And then
point.
from the end user
From the end user.
and
yeah.
remits it to the village.
Right, so it wouldn't be,
So there's no burden on the
Mhm.
homeowner or business owner to pay that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be on the total price.
I think what's 2% at that point, and just the 5.
So if it's a $200 a night place, 5% is,
$10.
yeah.
I don't know.
Plus 5% from the state, or 6% from the state.
Right.
Plus the
All right.
cleaning fee.
First being in Illinois. Okay.
Plus the service fee.
So do you have an idea of where to go from this, Erica?
we have direction, thank you.
All righty. Let's start off with reports.
Let's start with you, trustee Saviano. You're on here first.
I'm on, oh, it's shocking. Okay, so I just want to say the good news that Caleb just told me that Elmhurst contacted him about the community mural and wants to do it and is looking to our direction on that. So that's another town, which is super cool. And that's all I have, because I just heard that today and was excited.
Trustee,
My name's Scott, yeah.
I didn't want to say Scott. I was gonna say trustee Scott.
Yeah, that's fine. Phil, in your biweekly report, 34 lead service lines have been replaced in East Dundee. Well done. How many did we ever find out that we figure we have?
I think we have over 300.
300. So we're at 10%.
10%.
Okay, to start.
We still haven't received all of our survey results on the material service type, but we're continuing to work on that.
Yeah.
But you also said that you found some, so what happens in a few years when we're done with this and we find some?
Well, our goal is to make sure we talk to every homeowner in town and business to make sure we're 100% knowledgeable of all the service companies in the community.
Is that it?
Well, the hope is we won't find them, to answer your question.
Yeah, that was all, yeah, just.
Trustee Mahoney?
No report.
And then trustee Guma?
No report.
Phil? Or I'm sorry, trustee Sada?
No report. Thank you.
I'm used to starting at you, but I figured.
Yeah.
Phil, anything?
Well, the reporters are gonna start demolition on Third Street here in the next couple of days, so Water Street will continue progressing. We should be on target for project completion mid-November-ish.
Okay. Anna?
No report.
Brandon?
The budget PowerPoint presentation is attached to the website if you want to peruse. It's basically a consolidation prior to.
Chief?
Thursday is my 2-year anniversary as chief. I just wanted to thank you all for trusting me.
Yay!
Are you taking us out? Caleb?
No report.
Bronco?
No report.
Norfolk?
And Erica?
I just wanted to announce that for December, we're proposing to meet on December 8th instead of on the 1st due to the Thanksgiving holiday and staff people being gone to not be able to put the packet together for the 1st. So we will have one meeting in December on December 8th, and then we will break until January. We still have one meeting in 2 weeks on November 17th.
So November 17th, December 8th.
The only thing I got is I spoke to a few different people, Erica and I spoke with some others that they're interested in doing some businesses here in town, so hopefully that'll move forward and good thing for us. Other than that, I have nothing else. Do we need anything for executive session?
Yes.
I thought I saw something.
C11, please, probable and imminent litigation.
C11, okay, let's get a motion to adjourn going into executive session.
I'll move to close to a public, to executive session, close to public and media under the provisions of the Illinois Open Meetings Act, 5 ILCS 120-2, C11, no,
C11,
C11 pending litigation.
probable and imminent.
Probable and imminent litigation.
And to adjourn from
Do we
executive
have a
session.
second?
Yes, yes, and to adjourn from executive session, not returning to public
Second.
meeting.
Second.
Trustee Saviano,
Yes.
trustee Kunzu,
Yes.
trustee Mahoney,
Yes.
trustee Guma,
Yes.
trustee Sauter.
Yes.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Can we take a 5-minute recess? We take a 5-minute recess?
If you want to.